It feels like it was only yesterday. Leader Fan Radio Network.
What do you mean?
And KFAN.com. 2 minutes, 37 seconds past the hour of 3 o'clock Central Standard Time. We welcome you back to the Bumper to Bumper program on a rather crisp, rather chilly Wednesday afternoon here in the Twin Cities of Minneapolis and St. Paul. My name is Dan Barreiro, the host of the program. Guardsy produces the show, or at least will early. You're bailing about 4:30. Is that the rumor?
That's the plan. Got to head back to the barn where I was last night as a spectator.
The women knock off the 22nd ranked USC.
They were 21 when the Gophers beat them.
When the Gophers beat them.
On Sunday, yep.
First time in the women's program they've beaten a ranked team since the Cheryl Littlejohn era. Is that correct?
Pretty close. It was 2019. Yeah. It had been a while.
Remember her?
I do. I see her picture every day when I walk by Williams Arena in the hallway. When they had the hallway of coaches.
That didn't go well, did it, as I recall?
Not really.
Not as a head coach, I don't think.
Right. Not particularly, no. Although, I believe she did recruit Lindsay Whalen.
Is that right?
I'm pretty sure.
You might have a better memory than me on that.
I think Whalen played for her freshman year.
Ah.
I'm pretty sure.
Close circuit to Whalen. You can confirm or deny that.
I think she's like in Prague or overseas.
I sense she was far away.
Yeah.
Not heard from her lately.
I think she's scouting for her WNBA job.
Okay.
That's my guess.
So she's in it, man. She's diving in now.
Embedded.
That's it.
Embedded.
That's all that matters. We're delighted you're along for today's 3.5-hour ride, even if Guardsy has to leave early for Gopher women's basketball duties. Going to be a Power Pack program while he's here, and a Power Pack program, I hope, even after he leaves. Although, do you have an injury update on Special K, Pat Kessler?
Yeah, I got a text early this morning, said he will not be in today. And I think he's got the flu.
Did he blame me for it?
Didn't come up, okay. No.
Because I've been battling, I don't really think I had the flu. I had a head cold that went into, and it did start affecting my voice, but I don't think I really had anything more serious than that. I think I sounded worse than I felt.
Right.
But I did warn him last time, and he gets very,
yes, he does.
Shall we say, fussy about those sorts of things.
Fussy is a good way to put it.
At his age, I understand that.
Well, it's funny that you say that. It's very funny that you say that. It's kind of sick that you say that, because here's the text exchange this morning.
Okay.
Kessler, I'm sorry to do this on short notice, but I'm really sick with the cold/flu, kicking my ass since the weekend. Hopefully I'm on the tail end of it, but no voice and heavy cough. And then because he gets the bit, he says, it's frustrating. And my response was, at your age, you can't be too careful.
No, that's undeniable.
And then he was mad about that. He said, I was looking for empathy. I said, I thought that was empathetic.
That is empathy, yeah.
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
He
didn't take it that way.
But it's sick that we both went with the age joke right out of the gate.
25 years ago today, as many of you probably have been reminded, something cataclysmic took place in Minnesota Vikings history. And I will maintain that for sheer absurdity, I don't believe anything tops 41 Donut. I'm not saying that loss hurt as much as wide left, or maybe even Favre throws across his body. But for absurdity, for sheer embarrassment, how do you top 41 Donut? And to help us commemorate and celebrate it, one of your favorites, one of my favorites, former Vikings kicker, punter, Mitch Berger, who was a member of that team, has agreed to join us fresh off the golf course, I think, at 3:45 our time, 2:45 his time.
That's usually
He's based in Scottsdale.
That's usually the time he joins us, is fresh off the golf course.
That's true, which also can be dangerous with him, depending on the cocktail level.
Yeah, the Rosenbaum level.
I texted him this morning. Let me read you the text. By the way, quick stat look back. That, of course, was the NFC title game after the 2000 regular season, right? So it took place in 2001, but it was from the 2000 season. First downs, Minnesota 9, New York Giants, who were 2-point underdogs at home, 31.
It's frustrating.
Passing yards. New York Giants 380, us 60.
The stories a stadium could tell.
Total yards. Giants 518, us 114. Total plays. Might be my favorite stat. Us 41, Giants 82. They had 82 plays. And if I recall, I think they kept the ball on the last drive, never gave it up for like 11 and a half minutes. That's how interested we were in stopping them.
Well, I would say I can't verify that because I had stopped watching that game long before that drive.
You did?
Oh, of course.
You got to stay with it. I'm an ambulance chaser.
No, well, you were there,
I was
right?
there. Yeah, I had no. That's true.
I was at Aaron Goldstein's house in Edina, Minnesota. I had no problem moving on to other things that Sunday afternoon.
Yards per pass attempt. Us 1.9, them 9.3. That's Kerry Collins.
Well,
right?
yeah, I was going to say it's Kerry Collins. What else would you expect?
It's Brady. It's Joe Montana. It's Mahomes. Kerry Collins never played that well before or since, correct?
That was his Braden Carrington night.
That's true.
Did you see the game?
It was, in fact, it was 14-0 in the first quarter. It was 34-0 at the half. And Berger, years ago, you reminded me of this, has been good on this subject. And I think we've probably run Robert Smith into the ground on it. He's been more than gracious to bring it up every time I've asked him to talk about it.
That was his last game, right?
That's true.
Yeah.
That's very true, Davey. So here's the text I sent. Do you have it in you to talk 25th anniversary of 41 Donut? He didn't text back. He called. And he said, now, when you say 41 Donut, are you talking about the NFC title game? I thought he was kidding. Maybe he didn't remember it as named by Randy Moss.
Right.
Moss is the guy who named it 41 Donut after showing such a level of interest in the proceedings that, he spent pregame bitter that he couldn't get a couple of his buddies down onto the field. A level, I think, which gave us some sense of the level of concentration that the average Minnesota Vikings superstar went into that game with.
He was locked in.
He was completely locked in.
Yeah.
He named it. I was there when he said it. You mean, I think the quote was, you mean, what's it like to lose 41 Donut or something like that?
Mm-hmm.
He was way too philosophical about it. It was almost like he was reveling in it. It was weird, but that's Randy Moss. Randy Moss has always been weird. So Berger, and by the way, if you have your own memories of 41 Donut, because many of you do, they might be unusual memories. Text me. Bradshaw and Brian KFAN text line 64686. Berger is scheduled for about 3:47 today. Kevin Seifert will be in studio afterwards at 4:15. He covered that game, so he can talk about it. And Kessler's out because he's not feeling very well. We'll still try to do justice to the A-section stories at some point today. But when we come back, we got a visit. I'm looking forward to this with a fellow Hoosier grad. You're going to be prepared to roll your eyes a lot because I think we're going to end up talking a lot more about Indiana, the school, our times there, and football than we are the Minnesota Timberwolves, who absolutely, speaking of, it was in its own way 41 Donut-like without shutting out the opponent.
Crazy.
The basketball equivalent of it, Wolves over Bucks without Rudy, without Anthony Edwards, and we were up 30-some at the half, booed them off the court. Now their superstar players bitter about the booing. You heard that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we might get into some of that with Micah as well. Heralded Wolves assistant coach, the guy who takes over. Does he have the title of assistant head coach officially?
I would imagine, but
He's
I don't know.
got to because he takes over when Finchy gets
sick or tossed.
knocked out or tossed. Exactly. So we'll check in with Micah on all of that and more when we return. Minnesota Timberwolves hit the road yesterday and get a rather impressive, perhaps even startling, easily double-digit victory over what appeared to be a disinterested Milwaukee Bucks crowd, or team, I should say. Our next guest was there. He is the now renowned, because of, I think, pithy observations, assistant coach. We are assuming assistant head coach of the Minnesota Timberwolves. Micah Nori is kind enough to join us via the Connecticut Water Systems hotline. Welcome to the program. I assume you have to be officially, in your official, on your business card, does it say assistant head coach too?
It just says assistant coach, but they kind of, the way the NBA does it, it's like probably similar to NFL where they just kind of, I mean, I know there's coordinators and this and type of thing, but it's kind of like you have a lead assistant and number 2 assistant, 3, and therefore all the way down the line. And so I would be considered the lead assistant, but very fortunate to be a part of the staff and excited to be on with you guys. So thank you for having me.
We're looking forward to it very much for a number of reasons. My most important question I want to start with, are you going to be able to find a way to get to Miami, Florida, Monday night? Can you receive what's called in the business an excused absence to watch your Indiana Hoosiers try to make history by winning their first national championship?
I wish I could. However, I would think the fact that until I hid from people that I was an Indiana alum as far as football went until the last 2 years.
Yes, we all did.
And now everybody's coming out of the woodwork. You know, everybody's dusting off their old Letterman coats and all this and that and talking. But it should be I will definitely be watching. Unfortunately, I won't be able to be there in person as we will be in Utah. But however, it's exciting times for sure for all Indiana alums. And I think college football fans, it's 2 teams that haven't been there in a minute. And it'll be exciting. I
also am an IU alum. I'm a little older than you. I graduated undergrad 77 and then hung around to start graduate work for all the wrong reasons and never finished. And I was the guy at the Indiana Daily Student, or as Bob Knight used to call it, the Daily Dissident, who covered that last undefeated national championship team every game, 32-0 that year. So we have IU roots in common. You've told this story elsewhere a bunch, but for our audience, I want you to retell it because I tell people, or you talk to people about the fact that you used to play baseball. I know you were a 3-sport guy, I think, in high school, but you used to play baseball at IU, and now you're a big shot NBA basketball coach, assistant coach. So give us the short version of exactly how a baseball guy, or a guy headed, it seems like maybe for baseball, ends up coaching basketball.
Yeah, the Cliff Note version of that is, and you hit the nail on the head. Back then, there wasn't as much specialization as there is today, so it was more 3 sports. You just played whatever was in season. I was a better baseball player than basketball player, so went to Indiana, played there for 4 years, went to grad school for 1 year, Miami of Ohio, and then the connections, obviously your connection to Indiana, Butch Carter, was an Indiana alum. He's a very good friend of ours from Middletown, Ohio, who, your listeners probably being Minnesota Vikings fans, Chris Carter, his older brother.
Yes.
So we were very close with the Carter family. And I had finished up grad school at Miami of Ohio. Didn't know quite what I was going to do. Was thinking of going into whether it be assistant coach in baseball at the collegiate level or looking to get an AD job and coach high school ball. Butch said, hey, do you want to come up and intern with me? He had just been named the head coach of the Toronto Raptors. And I was like, Butch, I've been hitting baseballs for the last 4 years. And he said, well, that's all right. It's, you obviously played basketball. It's more X's and O's. We're not going to have you teach Tracy McGrady and Vince Carter how to shoot jump shots. And it's just dealing with people and all that type of thing. And sports are sports and people are people. And I said, all right, well, I guess I'll give it a shot. And that was 28 years ago. So I've been very, very fortunate. Had a lot of people look out for me. I spent 15 years in Toronto and then kind of bounced around a few stops before ending up here in Minnesota with Coach Finch for the last, this will be the 5th season here, and just been very, very fortunate with the crazy career path, but had a lot of good people and been, again, I hate to keep saying it, but just very, very fortunate to be where I'm at and in the route that I took to get here.
You're being self-deprecating, and I understand that, but I think it's fair to say maybe you got some good breaks, but you've taken full advantage of them to this point too, and there's nothing wrong with that as well. And that's why I love the story, because it's so improbable. We always assume you just go up the ladder and it's one sport and you specialize, and that's what I love about what your background, your biography. Now, I will add this at the risk of annoying you. I once, as a reporter at this point for the Louisville Courier-Journal, chased the same Butch Carter across campus way back when. He got into some trouble. It's not even worth going into all of that. It's a trifle compared to what's going on today. And we were trying to get comments from various players who were in the middle of it, including Butch. And I chased him. I think it might have been near Teeter Quad. I can't remember where it was. And I think the only comment on that occasion I got from Butch was, "No comment, babe." That's how he left it. And so we are even connected by Butch Carter. So I thought you might get a kick out of that as well.
Oh, that is great. Small world. That is fantastic.
Very small world for sure. All right, let's get to what took place last night. You know, I think you went viral with some of your halftime comments. Was it at halftime at the Atlanta game? I think it was, where you basically said, well, we're not doing anything. And we're not doing anything right. And it went on from there. One of the probably worst losses in recent memory for the Wolves, not a competitive game. And you see that swing from there to what took place last night without Anthony Edwards, obviously without Rudy. You've been around now a while. How do you explain those sorts of swings, even through what is admittedly a long basketball season, to the average fan out there? How does that stuff happen?
Yeah, I think the easiest, explanation for it, to be honest, is like when you're missing two of your main guys, meaning obviously Rudy and Anthony, two huge parts of what we do at both ends of the floor. I think there's a couple of things. Number one, there's a higher of alertness or awareness. Like the one thing that all athletes, they never want to be embarrassed. And what I mean by that is they don't want to think like, oh, okay, well, so Rudy and Ant's out. A lot of people are expecting there to be a letdown or we lose the basketball game. And these guys are all professional. They're all very, very good players. Obviously, all have a lot of pride. They're kind of like, so two things with that. Number one, they want to come out, put their best foot forward. They know that there's going to be more opportunities at both ends of the floor to make plays just because of the level of talent that you're talking about. Like Anthony, he drives a lot of our offense. So there's going to be 20 shots out there for a guy.
Micah? Hello? Put Micah on hold there. All of a sudden, the cell connection went a little bit sideways. Could be sabotage. We'll double check it. Don't forget to bring to me via the Bradshaw and Bryan KFAN text line your 41 donut memories. 64686 is the number in which you can do exactly that, and a bunch of you have done so. We're gonna try. He's just checking. Guardsy's checking about the connection right now. Want to add, Kevin Seifert's going to be in studio probably about 4:15 or 4:20, unless our 3:45 guest decides to go incredibly long, which is very possible. That's the always loquacious Mitch Berger, who was a member of the Vikings club that got edged 41-0. He told me he thought he punted like 12 times in that game. I'm going to double check. And he said he punted poorly almost every single time. I'm going to look that up. Obviously, in a game where you're outscored 41-0, chances are good that you're punting a lot, unfortunately. All right, we got Micah back. We lost you all of a sudden there in the middle of that, your rambling dissertation about, which I think, raising a good point about the fact that other players are going to say, okay, here's a chance for me to do something. Everybody's assuming we're going to get our asses handed to us, and let's go out and play.
Yeah, and so everybody's a little bit more higher, and I think it goes right along with what you were talking about, Dan. With it's game 41, it's a midway point. It's a one-night trip to Milwaukee in the middle of January, and it'd be very easy. And we've won 5 out of 6 or whatever it was, and so you could have chalked it up as, hey, we don't have all of our guys, this and that. Let's just go and see what happens. But it was the complete opposite. The guys all of them stepped up. They all took on, and I think. Not only, you just saw the way we shot the ball, you saw where the ball moved, and then that obviously helped. But it was great, I think, for everybody to see Johan Berger, kind of like a little bit of a coming out party for him as well, and just was fun to see. And just when those guys got that opportunity, and it just a lot of energy, and it just carried over, and it carried over for 48 minutes, which was great.
I will tell you, and this is dangerous because when you play the projection game on players, you tend to emphasize what you think he can be at his best, and you leave out the warts that might be part of his game that he's got to get better at. But you mentioned Johan, and what he absolutely fascinates me, because for me, he represents the kind of player who I think eventually, if it goes the way you guys are projecting, can be a game changer type, not necessarily because he's scoring a bunch of points, but just because of his length, and because of his activity. And to me, those players, those kinds of projects always interest me the most. What are your impressions of him early?
Yeah, I think the one big thing, and I mean, in a league where playing hard is a skill, he does it constantly. I think and I felt bad for him because I think he was played the last daggone near 18 minutes, so he was ready to pass out when there was about 5 minutes to go in the game. But he knows no difference. And what I mean by that is he plays so hard. So number one, that is a great skill. That is a great attribute of what he does. Obviously, he has the athletic ability. And the other thing he does is he does these simple things that you want guys to do, and just the coachability, being 19 years old. He's not into the, nowadays with AAU and all this, everybody wants to shoot the ball and score the ball, and he really prides himself just in all the little things. Playing defense, he can guard multiple positions, blocking shots, getting extra possessions, whether he gets the rebound or he just keeps it alive for knockouts. And we got some things there for kickouts, to the perimeter. So all the little things that is just effort and a lot of things that guys don't want to do on a nightly basis, he does. And then he's always very smart basketball guy as far as being in position, being below the defense. He's a screener and a roller. He's not looking to pop for jump shots, which a lot of guys like to fall in love with now. But so all those things that you kind of hope that your bigs would do, he does that innately, and he enjoys doing them. And then it's just a matter, he's got great hands, and he's got great hand-eye coordination and timing. So he's got a lot of the skills and, I guess, the innate abilities to continue to grow. And when you look at a 19-year-old kid with the physical abilities that he has, it is hard not to look at what he could be at the top of the level as opposed to his floor, if you will.
Wolves assistant coach Micah Nori, kind enough to join us fresh off a very impressive Wolves victory on the road, in which, man, I believe the Bucks were booed. You had them booed off the court. Definitely at the half, I think, and maybe even later in the game. Giannis was not particularly pleased about that, but then again, I don't know. I don't know what one might expect given what looked to me like a very casual approach, at least defensively, by the Bucks if you get killed that way. Let me ask you a more general question about the condition of the club. The numbers are good. You got, I think, the best record the last, 6 weeks or so in the league. It appears some things, well, I'll just ask you, do you see common threads on what's coming together here that has put you in a position where you guys seem to be playing very good basketball?
Yeah, I think, just the track record that we've had the last few years. And what I mean by that was, you go to the Western Conference Finals, before we make the big trade, where Cat goes to New York and we get Julius and Dante. And even prior to that, the year before, when you're adding pieces like Rudy, it just feels like every year there's been a transition. What I mean by that is you had Rudy, and then you had Rudy with Cat, and then you had Julius last year, and then this year we obviously lose Nikhil, and we're starting Dante. So that's a bit of a change as far as just the personnel. So there's always been that. When you look at it just that's just the stuff you can see. But I think the one thing that Coach Finch does a great job of, and our guys do a great job of, number one, we've always defended, and that's been a part of our identity. So that will always keep us in basketball games. And you hear a lot now in playoffs as these football players are, defense travels. So every night if you defend, you're going to have an opportunity to win the basketball game. We have some very, very good players, obviously led by Anthony, an all-star, and Rudy, defensive player of the year, and then Julius, who's been an all-star before. So just that talent alone. But it still takes time just to figure out everybody finding their new roles. Dante's now starting instead of coming off the bench. We don't have Nikhil, so now you're finding minutes for whether it be Jalen Clark, TJ, Rob, all Bones, Highland, like trying to figure out that role. And now we've kind of started to figure that out, and we've gotten to a good groove. And it just always seems like I know we got off to a great start 2 years ago, but even last year we were kind of hovering around 500. But we've just seemed to about this mid-season, just everything kind of starts falling into place. And I think it might even be the rhythm of the season where now we're basically playing every other game. And so the guys are just, it's play, one day of practice or prep or whatnot, and then play, and then they get into a good rhythm, and just things are starting to fall into place. Guys are figuring out who they are, where their minutes are going to go, what their actual role is on this team, and you start to see where the consistency can build, and that's the biggest thing.
Something you said earlier is sticking with me. I think you said effort is a skill in this league, and there are people who are going to hear that, and they're going to go, "Ooh, that's a little bit scary. That's a little bit frightening." Explain what you mean by that, and explain why that should be a skill and not a given. Yeah,
I think that the reason why I say that is because there's 82 games, and again, not to beleaguer the point, whatnot. But like you said, we're playing in Milwaukee with a couple of our guys out. It's a Monday night or whatever it may be, Tuesday night, whatever it may be. And it'd been very easy to not necessarily mail it in, but go through the motions. And, but to get up to play with and again, I know these guys, we stay in very nice hotels, we travel very well, but it's still a grind. And it is difficult. Guys have bumps and bruises and all this, but to be able to play as hard as you possibly can every time you're on the floor, it sounds like it's a given. And, a lot of common people, we all think that it should be, but it is difficult to do. And because what I mean by that is every single night, like it'd be easy to take a possession off defensively, or hey, I might not get back this. I turned it over. I'm not going to get back because we have 4 back. If they score those 2 points with 6 minutes to go in the second quarter to, oh, well, we'll get the next possession. But to play hard and give everything you have with multiple efforts and, you set a screen and then you roll. Well, I might not sprint through to roll. I might not get the ball, but you might, when you sprint, you might force a tag from the weak side, which opens up a shot for somebody else. So when you do those things at a high level consistently, the reason why I say that's a skill, because it's just human nature to be like, this one, maybe I don't have to close out as hard, maybe save my breath, save my legs a little bit for the next possession. But that's why I say when you see guys like Johan, and they stand out. They really do. And I think, you can go through the league and pick, and we've all seen them, guys that just give everything they have every moment they're on the floor. And that's not taking away from the other guys. Everybody's playing hard. But when you see it every single possession, that is a skill. And I think that a lot of guys, and it's just like availability. That's a skill. I mean, you see it in football, obviously more so there, but just being available, being on the floor and playing for your team and not being injured. Unfortunately, you see it like in Philadelphia with Embiid. Here's a guy that, is an MVP level, but he misses a lot of games and you feel bad that he just can't stay healthy. But availability is also a skill. And I think that that's what I'm speaking of when I talk about playing hard being a skill.
In your experience now, and we all assume that eventually you'd like to be a head coach in this league. Give me the breakdown, if you had to, percentage-wise, between the X's and O's and the handling of personalities and egos in terms of importance. Is it 50-50? Is it 80-20 these days handling players? Or how would you break that down?
I think when I started, 30 years ago, I used to think a lot more of it was X's and O's, and just, trying to find guys open shots and how you defend guys and all this. Now, I think then I would say that it would have been 80-20 or closer to 50-50 in that regard. Mm-hmm. Now I think it's 20% X's and O's, 80% of handling people, handling egos. Talks about what we're just talking about, getting guys to play 82 nights of the year, not to take nights off, finding a reason for them to play, obviously other than just to win the game, but to bring it every single night. And I think when you talk about X's and O's, the way the rules are now, and it's good, everybody's trying to shoot threes, and everybody's looking for, it's such an analytically driven game, and that feeds so much into game plan. So a lot of your work is done for you. I mean, you can look up and see, hey, on every drive that, whoever's had it, they love to go left. All right, let's force them right. They like to pull up. So you know what people are doing tendency-wise, so that cuts your time and preparation down. But my point is, and Dan, it's a very, very good question. Nowadays, you're either switching, pick and roll. So in other words, like you're guarding one guy, you just pass him off, or there's a deep drop, which we try to do a lot to keep Rudy at the rim to protect, or you're up at the level blitzing and getting the ball out of good players' hands. Like if you want to make Luka pass it. Now, so there's 3 different things. So, and over the course of 82 games, you see the same defenses so much. It's just like, hey, tonight's a switch game. Tonight's a drop game. So you have those built in, and it's just a matter of maintaining guys as, they're all going to have bad nights. They're human beings. They have some tough days with whatever's going on in their lives. So just making sure you're in constant communication with them, understanding them, and I know it's old cliche, but letting them know you care about them before, and they have to know you care, as opposed to just using them as pawns and pieces to try to put them in position to be successful. I think it's a very, very good question. And I think you're right on. You've nailed it, that essentially the way the rules are now, the way these kids and the way everybody's growing up now, everything's TikToks and Instagram and Reels, and so you can't go and sit through a 30-minute film session. You could, but it's just not the way that that players are nowadays.
Yeah.
And I think that's the way that young people are nowadays. So you have to be able to communicate with them. You have to be able to understand what's going on with them. And so I completely agree with your guess, not even guess, but your statement that it is much more now relationships and getting and that type of thing as opposed to X's and O's.
All right. You're known for your honesty and for your candor, especially when it comes to some of those halftime interviews, but other times as well. So I'm hoping you can be as honest as you can to answer this question. When the Wolves, when Tim Conley made the move to get Dillingham, I was in the group that lauded the move. A lot of the people I respect in college basketball who had watched him play said, that's the guy the sneaky good pick. He's going to end up being a really, really good pro. And I'm not saying his career is over by any means, but clearly it's gone slower than I'm assuming he wanted or that any of you had hoped as well. And it certainly looks like now he might be left behind. Now, injuries can change that. But what is it in your mind, and maybe in the minds of the entire staff, that he needs to get better at to give himself a better chance to get himself in the good graces of the staff and certainly the head coach?
Well, I think that, being honest about it, like you say, I think that number one, Rob, still very, very young, as we know.
Yep.
A lot of times, in being around this for as long as I have, and talking with people, a lot of times point guard is very difficult to play in the NBA, especially at a young age, and especially a guy that even with the 1 year in college that he was. So it wasn't like he was 3 years in college. So essentially, he could be a junior in college right now. And I think that the big thing is it's very difficult. Most people say that it takes 3 years minimum in the NBA to get a good feel of what, playing the point guard position. And I think the one thing that's been difficult for Rob is Rob has been a scorer from the time that he was 8, 9 years old. And that is fine. And what we're trying to help him do and what he's trying to do is become more of a point guard, which is, break the paint, penetrate, and then pass it out and kick it out and that type of thing. And I think the one thing that has been an adjustment for him is that in the NBA, you've got taller, longer, more athletic guys at every position. Yeah. And I think that, so that's been an adjustment for him. And as a smaller guard, calling it what it is, it's not like he's 6'8" or has the Luka Doncic size or those type of, those big guards that can throw he is a smaller guard, which is fine. So it takes them a little bit longer to find their niche, to be able to navigate all the length and the height in the paint and just getting to his spots. And then defensively, he has, I will give him credit for sure. He has competed at a high level defensively and trying to compete. And it is a matchup league. Like you talk about X's and O's or dealing with, the things that everybody just basically looks now and go, okay, what guy do we want to attack defensively? And because of Rob's stature, sometimes they will go at him, but he's done a very good job of trying to, he's never been a show guy. Like when we talk about, hey, we're going to get you to show and attack. So all that has been a learning curve. And so for him, as he's trying to take all that information and then do it on the fly at the highest level with a team that has championship aspirations, that's where it's difficult. I think that's the one thing that people have to realize is that if Rob was the 8th pick in Washington or the 8th pick in Charlotte, and no offense to those teams, but if you could just run him out there every single night really not care about the outcome or the result, you'd have a different story as opposed to a team that is trying to, been to the Western Conference Finals twice and trying to take that next step. So he's got a tough job trying to do that, and he's under that microscope because, you put him in for games and people are like, well, wow, he doesn't get much run here or there. But that's because we are literally trying to win every single game as opposed to we're not trying to develop. We are, but it's very difficult to win and develop, if that makes sense. So I'm with you. I'm in the camp. I'm a Rob Dillingham fan. I think by no means is he on the out. It's just a matter of we're trying to win games.
Yeah, that's the tough part.
Bones has been playing very, very well. And you're going to have growing pains with a kid that played 1 year in college and is trying to play point guard in the best league in the world. And so I think that, he's been more, he's had to change his game a little bit, and that's difficult. It's not like he could just come in and be a wing and just get downhill or be like Johan. Johan's a rolling big and an energy guy everywhere he's been. But Rob has had to change a little bit and become more of a point guard than a scorer, and he's trying to do that. and he's continuing to develop to do that, and he's doing it underneath the toughest circumstances, which is do it on a team that is trying to win a championship with very good players and not a whole lot of room for development, if you will.
Is it simplistic to say for this team, given the position it's in, as you say, which is to make runs, could you possibly have used him or tried to use him as, all right, we'll get to the point guard stuff later. We need a bench player to give us some points. Just go in and look for your shot. Is that simplistic? Is that impossible based on the other things that he has to deal with as a smaller player? Or is that a way you guys could go or have thought about going with him?
Yeah, you could go that way, and I think that the one thing, again, the thing that's difficult is, and we just talked about why it's much easier now to game plan all that, because everything, and especially as he's gotten a couple years and even college, like statistically, everybody's game planning for him now, so they know what are his tendencies, and so a lot of times what he's battling now is teams are going under, as opposed to chasing him over and turning him loose downhill. So now when you go under, they're still in front of you. Yep. So a lot of that is you have to get them to stop going under. A lot of times it's just to pull up and make a shot or to race the guy. So there's some different things that is new to him that he's working on. And that's why to say that, yes, you could turn him loose as a scorer, but then the defenses also are game planning for him and playing him in different situations. And those are all things that, again, you look at, point guard in the NBA, I know a lot of your listeners are probably football people. It's like playing quarterback in the NFL. You're seeing coverages and things like this and making audibles and reads that you haven't seen. And every single person on that defense can fly around. And there's, think about playing the best athletes that we've ever played against, even back in high school, I remember the one guy. Imagine 5 of them being out there. And so for him, it's a learning curve at the toughest position to learn in the NBA and doing it at the highest level. So yes, we could go out there and say, hey, Rob, go score, but knowing that the defense is trying to not let him do that, if you will.
I'm very late. Let's finish where we began. I don't know how many contacts you still have at Indiana, but I'm curious because everybody's trying to figure out what's the secret sauce that Cignetti represents. Are there people you talk to that might be still there or that you're connected with that can give us any clues on how the hell he's pulled this off?
I think the big thing that I've heard from people there is, number one, he went into the portal, got a lot of his guys from James Madison, and it sounds crazy, very similar to the things that tie it back to what we're talking about with Rob. Rob being, 19, 20-year-old kid. A lot of our guys on that roster are 23 and 26 years old.
Yes.
So you're talking about grown men, and then I think the other thing you talk about. Not necessarily X's and O's, but you talk about people. It sounds like he's got really good people around him. It sounds like he believes, and when you talk about standards and all this and that, and if you give guys something to play for and you see it and you present it and you show them how to get there and give them a path to it, and they jump all over it, well then that momentum that he has built has just carried over. So, and I think he's killed it in the portal. You look at Fernando, he went and got him and all that type of thing, and it's just. Good for him. I don't think he could have done this back, even little as 7, 8, 9, 10 years ago when we were trying to build a team with just high school seniors, but with this portal and being able to get some guys there and implement his system. And, I just realized, shame on me, I didn't realize that Indiana had the largest living alumni in the whole country. Either. So I know now with NIL funds and all this, everybody's opening up a checkbook. So we got some players, some money to buy some players.
There you go. Really enjoyed the conversation. Definitely hope we can do it again. I'd love to try to get you on from time to time because you're fun to talk to, and I appreciate the extended time today.
Absolutely, and go Hoosiers and go Wolves, and thank you again for having me, Dan. Sorry about the drop call there in the middle of all this.
Not a problem. Thanks, Micah. We'll talk soon.
All right, take care.
The Wolves assistant coach, Micah Nori, good stuff with him. A little behind schedule because we do want to get to cataclysmic Vikings history. 25 years ago on this
The only thing that could stop you from more NBA talk and Hoosier talk is we got to get back to the Vikings negativity.
And it's a tough call because I really wanted to talk more Hoosiers.
I know you did.
I really did because I already am pleased with the portal who's coming in for next year. Stay tuned. texts are pouring in. Memories from 41 Donut 25 years ago today. NFC title game. Vikings favored on the road over the New York Giants by 2. And they get edged 41 to Donut. Kevin Seifert will join us in studio beginning probably about 4:15, 4:20 or so. Kessler out today battling a cold, he says. So Kessler will not be a part of the proceedings. We will get to some A-section stuff. I'm thinking probably in the 5 o'clock hour, which is generally the Kessler hour as well. But keep the 41 Donut memories in via the Bradshaw and Bryant KFAN text line, which, as always, of course, is 64686. 41 Donut memory. My brother lived in Houston, always a loyal Vikings fan, and had a flair for the dramatic. When the Vikings had a good game, he'd call and say, we're going to the Super Bowl. After the Donut game, he called and said, Minnesota is never going back to the Super Bowl. He said, if Randy Moss said it, it's true. Ha ha. For the record, 84 said it's going to be hard for us to win a Super Bowl in Minnesota. Jim from Matamidi, I was 47. When I watched that game, the only thing I remember about it was a little bit of the pregame. They had an up-close camera on Dante on the sidelines. It looked to me like there was a lack of confidence, maybe fear, deer in the headlights. Well, what's ironic about that is the Vikings went into that game cocky. That's what I think hurt them more than deer in the headlights. They went into that game assuming that it was going to be a lock, that it was going to be easy, that wasn't a particularly good Giants team, even though the game was going to be played in New York. And the Giants just came out and, from the beginning, just absolutely obliterated them. Mitch Berger was there. We've talked to him, been many years since we've talked to him about 41 Donut, but why not, if not now, when is the best way to look at it. And he now joins us via the Connecticut Water Systems hotline. You know what's interesting to me? I looked at the box score. Do you care to hazard a guess, or maybe what you think you know about how many times you punted in the 41-0 NFC title game loss? Is that right? Well, that went well. Why are we the only show that has phone issues? Is there something that happens is it sabotage in the afternoon, you think?
I think the equipment just gets tired.
That's what I'm wondering.
Yeah.
If it gets cluttered, can it be rebooted in some way?
It's an 82-game season, like Micah and Nori said. Playing hard is a skill.
You did have him, right?
I spoke with him. I had to wait for him to put his golf clubs in his truck, and then he was going to get in his car, and he said, I'm ready to go.
Yeah.
So I'll call him back.
I'll call him back and try again, and we'll see if we can get a connection that might last more than a minute or two. And we'll continue to cull through hundreds of texts that have come in regarding 41 Donut. Just a bunch of them. A lot of good gallows humor included, which I very much appreciated because it's the old deal of you laugh to keep from crying. Sometimes that might be the best way to go. 41 Donut. My firstborn was introduced to the world around 4 a.m. That day, he was in the room with us watching the game in his rolling hospital bed. Halftime, I spun it around to face us instead of the TV. Did not want him to see his first day. I didn't want him to have to watch that for his first day as a Vikings fan. The cork and the champagne was popped, not for a playoff victory, but to celebrate our son. His name is Carter, by the way, after Anthony, not Chris. All right, we think we've got Mitch Berger back after a little phone issue. How'd you hit him today?
Oh, not bad. Just a little time on the range.
Yeah.
And,
okay.
Getting it done before I go pick up my son from school and coach his team's basketball practice.
Nice. Well, we'll get to that in a minute. Do you recall how many times you punted in 41 Donut?
A lot.
I thought it would be.
But I know that I don't think I got a punt until we were already down 14-0 or something.
Yeah.
I can't remember what happened, but they scored a touchdown and then we fumbled and then they scored again.
That's true.
And I think by the time I punted the first time, we were down 14-0. It was a few minutes into the game only or something like that.
You're right. You only punted 6 times though. I would have thought it would have been more. But part of it was, Mitch, as you might recall, their possession time was ridiculous. They they ran out like the last 12 minutes of the game with a drive where they just kept handing the ball off and getting 3 yards and 4 yards and 3 yards and 4 yards. As you look back on it now, when did it occur to you that it was going to play? I mean, you were going to be in the middle of what it ended up being. I mean, was it early? Was it middle? Was it, before the game? What do you remember about how you're processing it as it's taking place?
Well, I don't really want to speak for him, and I know he's beloved there, and my boy Robert Smith. But I remember after the first quarter, what was do you have what the score was after the first quarter?
14. It was 14-0 at the quarter. It was 34-0 at the half.
Okay, so I think sometime in the second quarter when we were down 28 or something, me and Robert started talking about our off-season trip. We started talking about where we were going because he retired after that.
That's right.
And we went to Australia. Me, him, and Jimmy Kleinsasser went to Australia for 3 weeks for his retirement trip. And so we were discussing our trip way too early on the sideline than you should be in a game. But that's just how bad of a of a drudging we were taking.
Well, here's what I remember. By the way, for the odds makers, you guys were 2-point favorites going into that game because the Giants, even though the game was there, the Giants were not perceived as a particularly good team. And my recollection was the week leading up to the game, it was like out of the organization, out of Winter Park, it was this is our game. I mean, there's not any question that we're going to beat the Giants. They're not that good. And I'm wondering if you remember any of that, because I sensed almost overconfidence more than anything else.
I don't really recall how we felt. I don't recall, the week of the game. But I do know one thing. I do know that my feeling was if we would have played them at home, we would have beat them. I know that really cold and breezy, and the field was frozen. It was grass back in the day. And we were just such a fast team on turf.
Yeah, that's true.
That I feel like if I recall correctly, we lost that Green Bay game in overtime. And if we had won that game, we would have had home field advantage, I believe, if I recall that correctly. Do you remember that?
I don't remember that. I'll look for that. That's very possible.
Because I remember I held a field goal for Gary Anderson to win the game, and it was like a 22-yard chip shot. And it was cold and windy, and it was brutal out. And snap wasn't great, but I got the hold up. And when I got it up, he ran by and started blocking somebody. Trying to block somebody. And I remember, I'm like, slow down and just chip it through, whatever you got to do. The last thing I need is Gary Anderson blocking. And I rolled out and threw a pick in the end zone. And I recall that if I would have just thrown it in the dirt, we would have gotten another kick.
Oh, man.
But I didn't know that.
Right.
Nobody talked about it on the sideline.
Yeah.
Nobody said anything because leading up to that kick, I was actually kicking field goals in the net because we were way farther back. And I thought I was going to maybe have to kick a game winner from the long field goal. And so I wasn't really preparing to hold. I was preparing to kick. And then all of a sudden we got downfield, and I believe we kicked it on first down or something, or second down.
Oh,
with
man.
like 8 seconds left.
Yeah, you could have kicked it again. You're right.
And every special teams practice on Saturday, the rest of my life, on every team I ever was, they talk about how much time's left. If it's a bad snap and not a good hold, stand up and spike it in the ground and get another kick. And I remember that not even being part of a conversation that we had. And we were a very prepared team usually. Yeah. We usually went through every scenario, but we didn't do that. And we ended up losing that game. And like I said, I threw a pick in the end zone because I thought it was last play of the game. You're trying to make a play. Try to do something. Shoot, if I throw an incompletion, we get another kick. But no idea what I was doing. And that was, that I remember that more than I remember the actual game against the Giants.
Against the Giants.
We play them at home. I feel like we beat them.
And
then obviously on the road.
I'll give you the details. I don't have the details, but week 16, second to last game of the season, you lose to the Packers 33-28. That was here. So that's the game you're talking about, right?
Yeah.
And then the next week you lost to the Colts because I think by then it was already...
No. It was, you said 33-28 at Minnesota?
This was at Minnesota. The Packers won 33-28.
No, it was the night game at Green Bay.
Oh, well, that's much earlier than I think in the season. Maybe you're thinking about different. Yeah, at Green Bay, you played Week 10. Packers won at 26-20 at Lambeau.
Yeah, with a touchdown in overtime at Lambeau, where we didn't even kick the extra point because they had some crazy catch that he shot in overtime.
Yeah, that's right.
And we should have won that game.
That's true.
Like I said, we had a 22-yard chip shot or something.
Yeah.
And we didn't even kick it.
Yeah.
I remember feeling like that was the one loss that was a ridiculous loss that we had that would have made us home field instead of on the road.
The other thing that always strikes me from that game, Kerry Collins was a fairly ordinary pro quarterback, right? But that game, he was ridiculous. 28 for 39, 381 yards, 5 touchdowns in that game. And, the story, have you heard the stories? I don't know if we talked about this before. There's conspiracy theories that have evolved since then that alleged that part of the reason it looked like the Giants always knew what was coming was because they did know it was coming because they were stealing the signals on the visiting sideline. Now, that sounds pretty convenient to me, but did you ever hear that story or did you ever hear about those rumors?
No.
Yeah, that's one of the big rumors.
No,
Yeah.
I mean, that's one of the most biggest ass kickings of my life, and I think all of our lives, since everything just was sideways in that thing. But I mean, that story checks out as far as how badly we got beat down.
Yes.
I mean, that they knew what was going on. I mean, it sure felt like they did because we certainly didn't know what was going on.
Yeah, no, and I mean, we had, who was the receiver, Garzi, we had on Super Bowl week when the Super Bowl was here? We had Amani Toomer on, and he told the story that basically he was kind of ailing going into that week, and who was it? It was
Sean Payton was the offensive coordinator.
Offensive coordinator basically came in, right, and said
their secondary's no good. We're going to throw it the entire game.
Mitch, if you remember, you guys were so thin in the secondary. You were putting people like Robert Tate. People were just sort of being thrown out there out of desperation because you just didn't have enough corners, right? I don't know if it was injury or ability, whatever, and that seemed to show up in that game because they passed the ball at will in that game.
Yeah, I remember we always were, our defensive backfield was always a bit of a struggle a lot of the time. I remember being in Minnesota.
You're right. True.
It was coached by Coach Green's old buddy, Richard Solomon, was the DB coach.
Yes.
And I remember that, I don't know how well they got coached or what it was, but I know we usually struggled. And the years we did well is the one thing they did was we made a lot of turnovers. So we got a lot of turnovers.
Yep.
One of those defenses, kind of like Chicago is right now,
That's
to be
true.
honest. They're a team you can throw against,
You're right.
but they get a lot of turnovers. Now, if you get a game where we get a couple of turnovers, we got a shot. Well, we get a game where we don't get any turnovers, and you're playing against that defensive backfield, you're going to eat them alive.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's what's going to probably happen to Chicago in the playoffs as well eventually, is that they're going to catch up with that. If they don't get a few turnovers, they're going to get totally pounded.
Well, it sure as hell looked that way the first half of that game. Let me get a real short, you have time for a little short break? And you got a few more minutes, don't you? Because I got time. I want to talk also a little bit about Mitch's views of the Vikings of today and the quarterback situation as well. We are chatting with former Vikings punter and kicker, Mitch Berger, who was a member of the 2000 team that made it to the NFC title game and then got edged by the New York Giants, 41 to donut. Kevin Seifert is going to join us in studio as well later in the 4 o'clock hour.